She thought she could fool everyone with a fake coupon and walk out of the store with a super discount. But the staff didn't fall for the scam, and when they tried to stop it, she freaked out in an unbelievable way. She screamed, threatened to sue the store, and even tried to leave without paying. In the end, the situation got out of hand, and the police had to be called. Do you want to know how this story ended? Watch to the end. It was supposed to be an ordinary day at the store, but no one expected this woman to turn a simple attempt to make a purchase into a real show of public shame. The way she looked at the staff with an air of superiority, everything indicated that she was about to pull something. But there was something wrong. She seemed overly excited about the prices. She picked up the items, looked at the labels, gave a satisfied little smile, and put them in the trolley with a triumphant air, as if she already knew she was going to make a profit. And when she finally reached the checkout, it was clear that this moment would be the beginning of chaos. The employee at the counter was no novice. She had dealt with all kinds of customers, from the polite ones to those who tried to return used products, claiming they were defective. But this woman? This one was about to enter the list of the most absurd moments in the store's history. Her trolley was full. Expensive products, electronics, imported cosmetics, everything anyone would love to buy at a great discount. And that's when she made her first move. With a forced smile and absurd confidence, she took a crumpled piece of paper out of her handbag and placed it on the counter. "Here's my coupon." The cashier took the paper, and before she even looked at it properly, she realized that something wasn't right. The texture wasn't that of a legitimate coupon. The printing seemed to have been done on a cheap printer, and, to make matters worse, the numbers of the supposed promotion were misaligned, as if someone had copied and pasted them without much effort. Still, trying to remain polite, the employee calmly examined the paper. Then came the most absurd detail. The coupon offered 100% off. Yes, the woman was basically trying to leave the store without paying anything, and still thought she had an official document to prove she was right. The cashier took a deep breath, because she already knew this was going to be a problem. "Ma'am, this coupon is not valid." The sentence was said in a professional, neutral tone, without giving room for discussion. But, of course, the woman didn't accept that so easily. "What do you mean it's not valid? I got it from the store's official website." The employee let out a sigh. "I've heard this kind of excuse before. Ma'am, our store doesn't offer 100% discount coupons. There's no such thing." It was at this point that the first sign of an outbreak began to appear. The woman's eyes widened, as if she were being accused of a horrible crime. Her chest inflated, and in the blink of an eye, her expression went from surprise to pure indignation. "Are you calling me a liar?" Her tone rose a little, which made some customers in the queue start to pay attention to the scene. The employee remained calm. "I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this coupon isn't real." But for the woman, that was like calling her a criminal. "This is absurd. I saw this promotion on the website. This is fraud. I have rights." And that's how the chaos began. The customers in the queue were already fully aware of the confusion. Some pretended to fiddle with their cell phones, but were clearly recording the scene. Others simply turned to watch, because anything was more interesting than waiting in line. The employee tried to remain patient, but she already knew where this was going. The woman began to gesticulate in an exaggerated manner, throwing her hands up, pointing to the products in the trolley, as if they were proof of her innocence. "I got everything according to the promotion. This coupon is legitimate. You're trying to rip me off." By now, one of the managers had been called and was approaching to try to contain the situation. The problem was that the woman was now totally out of control. She couldn't accept that she had been caught in the lie. And when she realized that the scam wasn't going to work, she decided that the best strategy was to cause the biggest scandal possible. The customers murmured. The employee tried to keep calm. The manager approached. And the woman, sensing that she was about to lose, did what any clueless person would do. She threw herself on the floor, screaming. Yes, she really did throw herself on the floor, like a child who can't get the toy she wants. The noise was loud. People were in shock. For a second, no one knew how to react. And then the store turned into complete chaos. She rolled on the floor, screaming about her violated rights, demanding that someone do justice. The manager looked at the cashier and asked, without any expression of surprise, "Call security." And that's when things began to escalate to an even more absurd level. Because when security arrived, the woman decided she wasn't going to lose alone. She decided that if she was going to walk out of there with nothing, she would at least make a big enough fuss to be talked about for days, and she succeeded. Only in a way she couldn't have imagined, because before she could run out with the cart full, someone was already calling 911. The woman was still on the floor, thrashing about as if she were having an emotional seizure, while the store staff exchanged looks of sheer exhaustion. Customers were already pulling out their cell phones to record, because, let's face it, a scene like this doesn't happen every day. The manager, a man who must have seen everything in his life, remained calm. "Madam, please stand up." She pretended not to hear. Instead, she let out a dramatic groan and rolled onto her side, slamming her hand on the floor as if she were being attacked. "This is abuse! I demand my discount!" By now, security was on the scene. Two large security guards, who looked like they had no patience for clowning around, stood next to her, waiting for her to understand the obvious. This had gone too far, but this woman wasn't the type to know when to stop. She suddenly opened her eyes, as if she'd just had a brilliant idea, and pointed at the cashier. "It was her! That woman is assaulting me!" The whole store fell silent for a second. The employee, who until then had been maintaining a professional attitude, couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. She looked at the manager, then at the security guards, and then turned her attention to the woman on the floor. "I'm 3 meters away from the lady." It was true. She hadn't even left the till. But the woman didn't give up. She put her hand to her chest, as if she was feeling sick, and tried to look as pained as possible. I think I'm having a crisis." That's when one of the security guards, who had clearly run out of patience, grabbed the radio on his shoulder and spoke as calmly as he could. "You can call 911. The woman froze. Her eyes widened as if she had just realized that things were getting serious. "What?" The security guard didn't answer. He just repeated it on the radio. An out-of-control customer causing a ruckus and falsely accusing an employee. "We're going to need police support." She jumped off the floor faster than someone who was supposedly having a crisis should be able to. No, you don't need to call the police." But it was too late. The call had already been made. Now it was time to wait. Meanwhile, the audience was enjoying the show. Customers laughed quietly. Others made comments to each other. A group of teenagers at the back of the store were already watching the live broadcast that one of them had started on TikTok. The woman looked around and realized that she had lost control of the situation. Then she went into the, "If I'm going to lose, at least I'm going to cause some trouble" phase. She turned to the security guards and, without any logic or coherence, let loose. "You are violating my rights." The tallest security guard just raised an eyebrow. "Your rights to what?" She opened her mouth, but realized she didn't know exactly how to answer. "My rights. As a customer." The manager had had enough. "Madam, customers who try to commit fraud have no rights here." That hit the nail on the head. Her expression twitched. Her mouth opened and closed a few times. It was obvious that she wanted to retort, but she had no argument. And then came the last card, the final desperation. She grabbed her shopping cart, yes, the one full of products she thought she was getting for free, and started pushing it towards the exit, as if she was just going to walk out of there, as if nothing had happened. But there was one small detail. The security guards were blocking the way. She tried to dodge, but they didn't move. She tried to force her way through, but one of them held the trolley with one hand and wouldn't let her leave. "Ma'am, that's attempted theft." She pushed the trolley harder. "That's mine." "No, it's not." It was at that moment that the police car arrived. The sirens were like an announcement that the show was over. The customers watching held back their laughter. TikTok was already on fire with the live broadcast. And the woman? The woman realized she had lost. But of course, instead of accepting her fate, she decided she would try one last move. As soon as she saw the policeman coming in, she let go of the trolley, pointed at the staff and shouted, "I've been assaulted here." The policeman looked at her, then at the security guards, then at the manager, then to the customers holding back their laughter, and finally to the store's security cameras, which were clearly visible on the ceiling. One of the policemen sighed deeply, took out a notepad, and said, without patience, "Let's see the images before we do anything." The woman froze, because, of course, if there was one thing she didn't want anyone to see, it was the images. It was the images. The moment the policeman mentioned the security cameras was the exact moment when the woman's posture changed. Until then, she had been shouting, pointing fingers, playing the victim. But when she heard that they were going to check the images, her face paled. It was obvious that she knew she was in trouble. For a brief second, she was silent, probably trying to calculate what to do next. The customers in the queue, who were already enjoying the confusion, became even more attentive. Some were holding their breath, waiting to see how she would react. And then came her final trick, the last trick of a person who knows there's no way out. She forced a smile, one of those nervous smiles that are clearly fake, and took a step back. "Look, I think we've had a big misunderstanding here." The policeman, who was already writing everything down on his notepad, looked up. "Misunderstanding?" She waved her hands in the air, trying to look calm. Yes. I think maybe I took the wrong coupon. It was an honest mistake." The manager crossed his arms. The lady threw herself on the floor and accused my employee of assault. She blinked rapidly a few times. "Well, yes, but I was under stress." The security guard holding the trolley snorted and tried to leave without paying. The woman swallowed. Sweat began to form on her forehead. The policeman looked at the manager. "Can we have a look at the cameras, just to confirm the sequence of events?" The answer was immediate. "Of course. The security room is this way." The woman's eyes widened. "But is that really necessary?" The policeman didn't bother to answer. He just gestured for her to follow him, and then came the most pathetic move of the night. She pretended to receive a phone call. Yes. She reached into her handbag, took out her cell phone and held it to her ear, saying aloud, "Hello?" No one believed her. The policeman just waited. "Well, since everything's settled, I think I'll be going." She turned on her heels and started walking quickly towards the exit, as if she was just going to disappear and pretend nothing had happened. The policeman took 2 steps behind her. "Ma'am, stop where you are." She froze. I'm just going home. You're being charged with fraud and attempted theft. If you leave now, you'll be obstructing the investigation." She turned slowly, trying to keep her composure, but her face was completely red. "Obstructing? I'm a good citizen." The policeman didn't answer. He just pointed to the security room. "Let's see the images." There was no way out. She knew that. The manager led the team to the room where the monitors were. One of the security staff had already pulled up the images on the computer, and it only took a few seconds of viewing to put an end to any excuses she could come up with. The recording showed everything. Her confidently arriving at the checkout, her handing over the fake coupon, her throwing herself on the floor, pretending to be assaulted, her trying to push the trolley out without paying, and then the icing on the cake, a perfect close-up of the coupon, clearly showing that the printing source was amateurish and that the barcode was just a string of random numbers. The policeman looked at her. She avoided his gaze. "Madam, do you have anything to say about this?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was nothing to say. The customers, who were watching everything through the glass of the security room, began to murmur amongst themselves. The rumor had already spread. The woman with the fake coupon had been unmasked. She tried one last effort. I think I've been tricked. Maybe someone gave me that fake coupon. The manager raised an eyebrow. You printed it out at home. The silence was deafening. The policeman let out a long sigh. Ma'am, turn around. That's when she realized she was going to be arrested. Her eyes widened. Her lips trembled. What? You're being arrested for fraud and attempted theft. You have the right to remain silent. The customers outside began to record. She looked around, as if expecting someone to intervene, but there was no one there to save her. The security guard took the trolley and started returning the items to the aisles. The cashier went back to her work, and the woman, now handcuffed, could only mutter protests as she was escorted out of the store. In the end, everyone won, except for her. She still tried to break free, but the police held her fast. Not with violence, of course, but with the experience of those who have dealt with people like this before. People who, when they realize they've lost, try to turn their own guilt into a big show. I'm a victim, she shouted, trying to struggle away. The shoppers watched the scene with a mixture of shock and amusement. Many already had their cell phones out, filming every second of the fall of the woman who, minutes before, thought she was going to get out of there without paying a cent. The policeman ignored the protests and continued with standard procedure. Meanwhile, the employees went back to business as usual. The manager heaved one last, tired sigh before turning to the attendants and saying, "Right, let's get this sorted and get on with the day." The cashier, who had been falsely accused of assault, shrugged and reopened her queue. The customers went back to picking up their goods, and the store continued to operate, even though the woman was screaming as if she were being led to the gallows. She looked around for some charitable soul to intercede for her. "Is anyone going to let this happen?" she shouted. The silence was deafening. If there was anyone there who sympathized with her, they didn't have the courage to open their mouths. The security guard held the door open, while the policeman led her out. And that's when she realized something worse than her own arrest. Outside, some people passing by on the street also started filming. And when she saw that the commotion was already attracting attention from outside the store, she went into the "I'll try to turn the tables" phase. She started crying, fake tears, forced sobs, trying to play the victim of a cruel system. "I just wanted my discount. This is an abuse of power." The policeman, who had clearly seen this theater before, remained calm and replied without any emotion, "You tried to commit fraud and theft. You are being detained for this." She sniffled loudly, trying to look even more miserable. "But I'm a mother. I have children to feed." The officer just pointed to the police car. "Get in the vehicle, ma'am." She hesitated. She stood still for a few seconds, perhaps expecting a crowd of defenders to appear out of nowhere and demand her release. But, contrary to what she had expected, the looks around her were only ones of contempt, amusement, or sheer indifference. Then she realized she was alone, and with no more excuses, no more theatrics that could change her fate, she finally accepted the inevitable and got into the car, still muttering meaningless protests. The drive to the police station was short, but for her, it must have seemed like an eternity. She was no longer shouting. Now she was silent, probably trying to understand how she had got there. She went from VIP customer demanding rights to a detainee being booked for attempted fraud in a matter of minutes. When she arrived, the officers took her straight to the screening area, where they began to ask her the usual questions: name, address, date of birth. The clerk at the counter typed everything into the system with a bored look on her face, giving no sign of sympathy. "Reason for arrest?" she asked, without taking her eyes off the screen. The policeman next to her replied in the same monotone, "Attempted fraud and shoplifting." The woman snorted loudly, still trying to look indignant. "This is ridiculous. It was just a discount coupon." The employee typed a few more words, not interested in the drama. "Right. Take out your personal belongings and put them on the tray." She looked at the plastic tray in front of her and hesitated. "What? Cell phone, purse, jewelry, everything here," the employee explained, without patience. "This is absurd." "Ma'am, do you want me to fill this in as refusal to cooperate?" She widened her eyes, realizing that things could get even worse for her. Grumbling quietly, she took out her purse and cell phone, placing them on the tray with exaggerated drama. It was then that the counter clerk surprised her with a question that no one expected. "Size P, M, or G?" The woman blinked a few times. "What do you mean?" The clerk finally raised her eyes to face her and explained as calmly as she could. "From your prison uniform." The woman's face instantly turned red. "What?" The clerk sighed. "Your lawyer hasn't arrived yet, so you'll be held in temporary detention. I need to know your size." She looked at the policeman next to her, hoping that someone would defend her from this humiliation. But no one said anything. There was no way out. Then, defeated, she muttered quietly. The employee nodded and made a note. And that's how the woman who tried to forge a coupon to get free products was now about to spend the night in a police station cell, all for a piece of paper printed at home. The woman was now sitting on a hard metal bench, her arms crossed, her expression full of anger and indignation. Her outburst had passed, and all that remained was a mixture of frustration and a growing fear of what would happen next. The clock on the wall read almost midnight. The atmosphere was cold, illuminated by white lights that made everything even more impersonal. Policemen came and went, too busy to care about one more detainee. She looked around, trying to process what had happened over the last few hours. In her mind, that day should have been a masterstroke. She had planned everything perfectly. Print out the fake coupon, choose the most expensive products in the store, and walk out feeling like the smartest person in the world. But now, instead of being at home with her free items, she was sitting in a police station, waiting to see if she would get out that night, or if she would have to spend the night sharing a cell with other women, who surely had much bigger problems than a fraudulent coupon. She tried to convince herself that this was an exaggeration. After all, who hasn't tried to cheat the system? But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that it wasn't just about the coupon. She had thrown herself on the floor. She had pretended to be assaulted. She had tried to run away with a full trolley. She had made the biggest possible scene in front of dozens of customers who were now probably spreading her humiliation on the internet. And worse, it had all been recorded. She felt a chill. Had someone already posted the video? Were people commenting on it? Could it be that, at this very moment, her name was on some viral post, full of laughter and jokes about her failed robbery attempt? She bit her lip, nervously. And then, as if it were a direct gift from the universe to make her day even worse, one of the policemen stopped in front of her holding a tablet. "Ma'am, we have some questions." She raised her eyes, trying to look calm, but the tension on her face was evident. The officer turned the tablet screen towards her, and there it was. The video. The same video that one of the clients had recorded, already with over 500,000 views on TikTok. The title? "Woman tries to counterfeit coupon and throws herself on the floor like a fish out of water." She felt her stomach turn. The images showed everything. Her confident arrival at the checkout, trying to push the coupon like it was a golden ticket. Her expression of shock when she was caught. The pathetic scene of her rolling on the floor. The moment she tried to run away with the trolley. And, of course, the arrival of the police. The policeman crossed his arms and looked at her with a bored expression. "Do you have anything to say about this?" She wanted to shout. She wanted to protest. She wanted to say that it wasn't fair, that the recording was illegal, that she was being humiliated for no reason. But she knew better. Nothing she could say would change reality. So, for the first time that night, she remained silent. The policeman sighed. "Your lawyer has arrived." She blinked. "Lawyer?" The policeman nodded and pointed to a door. "Yes? Someone paid your bail. You can go, but you'll still have to appear in court to answer the charges." She stood up quickly, anxious to get out of there as soon as possible. But when she entered the room where her lawyer was waiting, she realized that the bad news wasn't over yet. He was a public defender. In other words, no one from her family had bothered to show up. She was alone. The lawyer, A middle-aged man who looked like he had had enough of life closed his briefcase and looked at her without any enthusiasm. "Well, ma'am, it seems we have a problem." She crossed her arms, trying to hide her frustration. "This is all a big misunderstanding." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "You were caught trying to use a fake coupon. There are witnesses, videos, and a history of aggressive behavior in the store." She looked away. "Still, it's just a coupon." The lawyer laughed a short, humorless laugh. "You know what makes it worse?" She frowned. "What?" He pushed a piece of paper towards her. It was a letter from the store. "They're suing you." She widened her eyes. "What?" "They're demanding compensation for the damage caused, including lost staff time, the loss of the items you tried to take, and the impact of the confusion on the customer's experience." She was speechless. All because of a stupid coupon. The lawyer stood up and picked up his papers. "You can try a plea bargain to reduce your sentence, but your reputation has already been destroyed. So I suggest you stop worrying about the viral video and start worrying about your bank account." She sat there, feeling the weight of reality bearing down on her. The video would fade with time. People would forget about it. But the lawsuit? That would haunt her for years. She left the police station with her head down, trying to ignore the curious looks from the few reporters who were already starting to appear. Now, all she had to do was wait for the trial. And, for the first time in her life, there was no discount coupon that was going to get her out of this. And if you like this video, subscribe to the channel and like it.